is, she is one of the co-owners of the Black Room, which is a German fetish shop off of Saharan Commercial Center. She also has been a performer. She also is a wonderful trans woman. So lots of interesting insights, as well as in her professional aspect. She also is a professional dominatrix, which means that she gets paid to go out and do all sorts of fun things to fun people for money. As well as she was running the Faust Dungeon, which is currently relocating. So it's closed, but it will be reopening at some point here in the near future. And she'll give you a little background about who she is, but here's the thing. Ask questions, okay? It's not every day that you get a wonderfully open, smart, trans woman who is also a kinkster who is here to tell you anything. Be careful what you ask, but don't be too careful. It's okay. Just remember that anything you ask, she might answer, okay? So think about that, but don't be afraid to ask questions. Please ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Ask it. And I think there's only one question that she will not answer. We'll see if you guys ask that, because my student did yesterday, which was interesting. So, without further ado, please welcome Tara.
Good morning. How is everyone today?
Waking up.
Not awake yet?
Not awake yet.
Okay. How many are all excited about the fight tomorrow night?
Anybody excited about the fight?
Anybody stupid enough to pay tickets?
Anybody actually going?
No.
Will you be working tomorrow night?
Yeah.
I don't even want to know what that'll be like.
Before I get started, I just have a question. How many people watched the Bruce Jenner interview last week? Okay. Good or bad? Did it reinforce your opinion of trans people, or did it change your opinion of trans people?
Anybody learn anything from that?
Did it enlighten you about trans people? There's something maybe you never knew before?
Different perspectives?
I thought it was good that he just was able to become himself, even though he's 65. He's finally comfortable enough to be what he wants to be. And he was just saying his goal is to let his fingernail polish chip. That's his goal.
Did the interview change any personal perspectives that you may have had about what you thought trans people were? Because we all have them.
I've done a pretty good job of teaching them about trans.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. Well, hopefully I, enlighten you a bit more. Obviously, please also ask questions about kink, because I'm really good at it. Okay. A bit about me. I was born here in America. Anyone from the Buffalo area? Western New York? Anything? No?
Queens.
Well, that's
yeah, but still New York, love.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, anyways, I was born there to a Canadian mother and an Irish father. When I was 5 years of age, my father took the family back to Ireland. So that is why I have the accent that I have. I lived there till I was 41, off and on. Between the ages of 20 and 41, I lived in places like London, Paris, Copenhagen. Got to see a lot of kink from a lot of different ways. I've been involved in this one way or another since I was 17. I worked in clubs, I worked as a pro in dominatrix in Europe, and I also do it here, as Dr. Amanda has said. So I have been transgendered obviously all my life. I transitioned in my late 20s, and I had my surgery, it would be 13 years ago. So, without any further ado, I will open it up to you, because I think it's much better if I answer the questions you ask than to try to give you a speech. Yes, dear.
What is the kinkiest country you went to once that you moved from?
Oh, Germany. Germany, definitely Germany. Those people put kink to a new level. There's a wonderful club in Berlin. Now, it's not a dungeon, it's just a nightclub. And it's called the Kit Kat Club, spelled with K's. And I laugh at times, because I've been to loads of clubs here in Vegas, and how they're all cutting edge, and how they're over the top. And these people do not know what over the top is in this city. The Kit Kat Club, if you ever go there, everything is like going to church after that. It's just amazing. I mean, anything between seeing people suspended from hooks through their skin in the ceiling to live sex. And these are just nightclubs. This isn't stuff that, it's not like you're paying to, to go to a sex club or something. This is just what happens in the club. So.
And that's just patrons that
anybody, yeah.
Anybody,
it's not
just
like you're not
kinda
paying people to do it. You're just showing up, and if you feel like doing a shag on a table, be my guest. The Germans know they know their stuff.
Have you gone to Amsterdam?
I've been to Amsterdam many times. I have quite a few friends in Amsterdam. I've worked in clubs there. 2 are now defunct, but the Dutch, they also are very liberal in their thought. Though sadly, things are changing in Europe a little bit because of the influx of immigrants. A lot of right-wing parties are starting to take over, and having a major voice in many of the governments. So certain things they've put a bit of a clampdown on them now. But in the 80s and the 90s and in the early 2000s, the sky was the limit, really. But the sex clubs and the dungeons and things, they still do operate, but it's getting a little bit more difficult to operate. Like in this town, I ran a dungeon or co-owned a dungeon called Faust. And yet what it was you paid to come in and play. But I didn't play with you. I was just a hostess. Because if you came in and I played with you, that's considered prostitution and that's illegal here in town. Even though no sexual activity goes on, it's still considered illegal. So the patrons who came to my club, they just paid to use the space that I made available, and then they played amongst themselves. Which is, a bit fucked up, but
a lot of people don't realize that for pro-doms in the city of Las Vegas, if you tie somebody up or hit them, even if you both have your clothes on and there's an exchange of money, that exchange of money then leads that behavior to quote-unquote being prostitution. Yeah. Which is very interesting because it's very different than prostitution. Yeah. But in the city, that's how it is. But the interesting thing is North Las Vegas and Henderson don't have laws like that. So
I should say, and she's absolutely right, but I should also say that one of the things you have to remember about a lot of laws is there are loads of laws on the books. Many of them are not enforced. I have quite a few guests that would come to my club that were metro detectives, that they were into the lifestyle, and they would come with their girlfriends or their wives or both or whatever. And they always would tell me that the biggest thing was, even though it's illegal, as Dr. Amanda said, to hit somebody, if nobody's complaining, the police are not going to enforce it. They don't really care. They know what the clubs are about. They knew what my club was about. I said I was checked out 4 times while I was open. Never was cited, never was threatened about anything, never told I had to do this or I had to do that. They just came in, looked around. They were basically making sure that my liquor license was current, that no drug activity was going on, and that no prostitution was going on. And other than that, they could care less. Twice they came in when people were actually beaten with single tail whips. They watched. Some smiled, some made comments. They didn't care. So.
I wonder how the people who were having those sessions.
Oh, they didn't know they were police. They didn't come in uniform. They were,
okay. Because that would add a whole different dynamic.
Yeah. No. That actually, I went to the police department and I told them this is what I'm doing. I had a license. People say you can't get licensed for anything. You can. You have a good attorney. You can get a license for anything. And I told them exactly what I was doing. They checked me out and they said, okay, you're fine. You don't have any priors for prostitution. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. There's no drug convictions. There's no gambling convictions. I wasn't running that book or anything like that. So they said, you're fine. Just make sure you run it on the open up, and that's what I did. The only reason I closed is the overhead. I'm looking for a smaller venue. So, anyone else? Yes.
You said that you lived in a bunch of countries.
Yes.
So I'm really curious, what's the cultural attitudes towards trans people in the different countries you've lived in?
It's mixed. I think it's like here too. One of the things that you have to be aware of is who you're around. Your location. Are you in a more liberal area? Cities tend to be more liberal than rural. The age group you're with, like your generation, seems to be extremely tolerant of trans people, which gives me hope for the future. I may not live to see certain things, but it's nice to know that trans people who are younger than me that are coming up, they hopefully will have opportunities I never had, and that encourages me. But I've also found that, like many people, if you are someone who passes well, you seem to encounter much less resistance than if you're someone who is obviously, people can look at you and say, okay, that was a woman who wants to be a man, or this is a guy who is in drag or whatever. And when it's that obvious, you are opening yourself up to ridicule, criticism, physical abuse. It does happen. Death. I mean, trans people are the rate of trans people being murdered under the age of 25 is 80% higher than a normal age group. It does happen, and this is by any walk of life. It's not just by other young people, or it's not just by somebody who, it's done by police. It's done by paramilitary groups. It's done by everybody. So it's a tough life to live. I wouldn't recommend it on anybody, but it is what it is, and I am who I am. So for me, it was great. For me, it was what it had to be, but I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy.
But you said when you went to England that you found it easier because that was also you taking.
Yeah, but I lived. Okay, you had to remember now. This was the late 1970s. Punk rock was on the rise and was going on. I actually knew Sid Vicious and Johnny Rotten.
No.
That might be a bit too early for many people here. If you ever heard of the band the Sex Pistols, that's what they were part of. And so I was very heavy into the punk group and punk lifestyle. So I was just accepted for that. And I had no real problems, as I've told you on a number of occasions. I have, with the exception of discrimination in jobs, I've never experienced any sort of physical abuse, name calling, hostility of any sort. I've been very fortunate. I also, as I said, I work as a pro-dom. So if anyone has kink questions, please ask. If you want to know how to do something to your boyfriend or your girlfriend, I can tell you. Maybe give you enlightenment about something you might want to try. Something for your father, if you will. So please open up, even if it's a negative question. Don't be afraid.
Come on, you got questions.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing?
Sorry?
What's your favorite thing?
To administer or receive?
Both.
To receive bondage. I'm a huge fan of bondage. Bondage and stimulation. Bondage and genital stimulation with vibrators, things like that. My own personal enjoyment when I play in the kink lifestyle is I'm a submissive. When I do it for money, I'm a dominant. And to tie me up for hours with a vibrator in both my ass and my pussy, love it. I'm in la la land for the whole afternoon. But to administer, it depends. Because I do sometimes, the way I set it up to protect myself is I don't take any certain client or some guy off the street that wants to be beaten. I don't do it that way. I have a stable of clients. Some are very nice gentlemen, some are complete assholes, And so, if it's one of the assholes, I love to do CBT. I just love to beat their balls. If it's somebody that I like, in more like a gentle sort, I love to do electronic torture with what they call violet wands. I don't recommend this, but this is sometimes you have a carry-all, and I'm prepared. So, and I carry this all the time. Because you never know, it comes in handy for both play and protection. Now this is big one. If I hold this to you, it will but
I love that it's pink.
So it feels great. Electronic stimulation can be loads of fun. To put this on somebody's balls or the tip of somebody's penis, which guys do want. I have one gentleman who likes me to really send the shock through his penis, so I just insert a little
Oh no.
Saute skewer made out of metal into his urethra. You were talking about the urethra?
Sounding.
I insert it into the urethra and go to the tip, and he just shakes and goes, and yeah. So it's a fun. It can be a lot of fun. I have suspended people by their balls, literally. Yeah. Some men seem to really like to be punished in the crotch. I don't know why, but they do. I have used ass spreaders on. Oh, here's a good one. If you didn't know this one, ginger. Ginger, the root, the ginger root. Okay, you get a solid piece of ginger root. A lot of guys love this one. It's one if you ever want to fuck over your boyfriend. You get a nice big piece of ginger. You carve it in the shape of a penis. And when you get your boyfriend or husband or whoever, brother, if you're really pissed at him, tied face down on a bed, and you stick it in his ass. The heat is unbelievable from a ginger root, and they will feel it for days. Just a little tidbit. It's the same kind of ginger, yes, a ginger root. You can buy them. You know, you can go to Walmart at the produce section and just buy a piece of ginger root and get a good sharp knife and carve it into. No. You might get a little because ginger, it does secrete like a juice. All right, so you might sting a little bit, but not the way it would be if you insert it anally or vaginally. If you wanted to do it yourself. Oh yeah, I've had it done to me. That's how I learned about it. Experience is the best teacher, yeah, it's one of my favorites for people who I've done it to. That they like when they finally learned about it, they loved it because they had the sensation the rest of the day, sometimes into the next day. So it's still in there, It's yeah.
Wow.
I was going along with what you said. I was curious, like how do you learn all the things you know?
Trial and error. I started out, like most doms will tell you, they started out as submissives. There are some tried and true practices that are in the kink world that you just kind of learn to do.
Tricks of the trade.
Sorry?
Tricks of the trade.
Tricks of the trade, yeah. And the best doms started out as submissives because you have to understand what things feel like on the body so you know how to administer it to someone else, okay? It's just like how they say, it's the same kind of deal, but some people say no one knows how to please a woman like another woman because they know how it feels. They can give that to somebody else. Some men may argue that point, or they might not want to do the man. Nobody knows how to please a man like another man. Some people may be a little bit about that, but hey, life is life. But yeah, so I learned as a submissive. I was a submissive for 6 years before I ever sessioned anyone as a top. A top being a dominant, a bottom being a submissive. Yeah.
And how did you get into pro dom?
Well, it's funny, but I was, even in the kink world, there are prejudices. Being trans, there were people who did not want to play. And I found that I enjoyed the lifestyle as much as I did, that I thought, well, you know what, maybe I can increase my playtime by turning pro, because I had learned quite a bit. And you get, like anything else, you start getting addicted to the money. Money can be good if you know what you're doing and your reputation grows. And it gave me a way to play, because as you were saying earlier about the porn star, for who I am, it's really difficult to have personal relations with people. Partly because I'm trans and partly because I'm in the lifestyle. A lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people are afraid of it. And one or the other is bad enough, but when you throw both together, it really makes finding someone to connect with on a personal level very difficult. So I did it to make a living, and I also did it to have my chances to play. I also did it for a living just because, as I said, people like me do not do very well on the most part in the corporate world. Some do, depending, but for most of us we don't. So it was a way to make a living. I didn't want to live on the streets. So
You've got more questions. from one.
Yeah.
So you said that you worked as a submissive before
Yeah.
you worked as a pro-dom? So does that mean that people would pay to like whip you or what? Oh.
No, they didn't pay, but I do that now.
Oh, okay.
When I was a submissive, I was collared to a dominant. Collars means you basically
Okay.
like his property.
Right.
And it was never for money, it was just play.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I learned my trade just doing what I like doing.
Oh.
Okay. But now, even though 95% of what I do, I'm a top, I do get paid to be whipped at times. That is much more because as a bottom, your body takes longer to recover.
Right.
So I charge much, much, much more than I would as a dominant.
And
As I'm getting older too, it takes me longer to recover.
but also because there's a lot of danger that can come into being a
Yes.
professional submissive, because you might get someone who's just a true sadist and just wants to beat
Yeah.
you until you're dead.
Yeah.
So you have to be extra careful.
Yeah, I do. When I'm topping someone, I just go on my own. It's fine because I'm in control. I'm doing whatever I'm doing. They're the ones who restrain me. When I am a submissive, I have a bodyguard, and he's 6'5", and he goes 278. His name is Gary. Gary's a very dear friend of mine, and I pay him well, but he is in the room with us. My clients know this beforehand. And it's like, look, this is the deal. You want to play with me, you can do what you want. It's going to cost you, but this man is here, and that protects. And if you don't have a bodyguard, you're in Egypt. Totally. Yes.
Can you give us a range of how much you get?
I'm sorry.
How much you
It depends on. I don't charge by the hour, because a lot of this kind of play, usually you don't do it in an hour. So most of it usually goes about 2, possibly 3 hours, depending on what you want. But as a submissive, my standard rate, if I'm playing, now you have to understand also, I don't play every single day. Sometimes I go a few weeks without playing. So my beginning rate is $500. Okay, but as a submissive, depending on what they want to do, if it's simple spanking or something, because I service a lot of older gentlemen. These are fellas who are in their 50 plus. Okay, they don't have a lot of stamina, not even sexually, but just they don't have a lot of stamina. They get tired quickly. So a lot of them, just for them, they have this fantasy of they want to spank somebody, so something like that would be like $300. But if it's something that's going to leave marks, minimum 5,000 or 1,000, excuse me. So that's a minimum. Yeah.
So I just want to be a little on topic, but
Sure.
like, what's your revenue point like for the year? Like, who's your competition as well between like strip clubs or?
Well, the competition is different because the lifestyle is so different. You have to understand, we don't provide sex at all. When you play in this lifestyle as a pro dom or a pro sub, if you're doing sex, chances are you're not very good at the kink part of it. Because what most people want in the kink is the mindfuck. Literally, they get off on the stimulation it gives them in the head. So if you're fucking them at the end, or you're giving them a blowjob, or they're bouldering you up the arse or something, you're not probably very good at what you're doing. So you're basically a whore with a whip. Okay. For those of us that do it, it's a very strict, or narrow clientele. They want the kink and the kink only, and they do understand sex is not involved. As Dr. Amanda said, sometimes where you run the risk is not necessarily of getting raped, though it does happen. You're running the risk of getting hurt because someone gets carried away with what they're doing. One of the first things I'll never forget, when I first started in, I didn't have a bodyguard. I was stupid. I was young. I took 75 lashes of what was called a single tail. You know what those are.
Dear God.
I had marks on my back 8 weeks after that session. I still had no scars, but I did have. And I do have one scar on my back from a session that went bad. I actually got, he hit me with a wide belt that had hooks on it. Yeah. So it does happen. You learn. Thankfully, I got out of that situation. But yeah, I have a very large scar on my back.
But there's a handful of other pro doms in town. So
There's
definitely some competition,
Yeah.
but it's not like a strip club.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I was like, who would their competition be? Because like a lot of food places have in and out and downs and all competition.
Right, but yeah, the DOMs themselves, there's only a handful in town One actually just on New Year's Day killed herself. She blew her brains out, which was sad. But and I did know her. But you'll find loads, as I said, you'll find loads that present themselves as doms because ever since 50 Shades of Grey came out, there's all this renewed interest, be it very minor play or what I call very light play, but the interest is there. So there's a lot of prostitutes who are jumping on that bandwagon, putting on leathers, carrying a whip, and saying, "This is what I am." Okay, so there's loads of competition. But if you see somebody in leather sitting at a bar stool or trolling casinos, they're not doms. True doms don't have to do that. And like myself, I don't even advertise on the internet. All my clients came through word of mouth. And it took years to build it up. But I usually play. They're all out of towners. I will not play with local people, and for safety reasons, both from the police and things like that. But some people I only play with once a year, twice a year as they get out to Vegas. Some I play with 2-3 times a month because they come into town that often. So yeah, on a yearly income aside from my store, on an average, you have to remember this is a cash business. I usually average about 35,000 a year in cash. Sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on what's going on.
So that's like
best I ever did was 82,000 in 2008. I made 82,000 cash. That was the best.
Without your store?
Without my store. That was just doing the dom. That was a kinky year.
It was a very kinky year.
I was thinking, what was the most money you made in one session?
$5,000.
What did you do with $5,000?
No. Well, it wasn't a kink session. It was just I used to also work as an escort. But that was with somebody, a very, very notable Hollywood star. He paid me $5,000 to shag me.
What is that?
Shag sex.
Fuck me.
Fuck. Yes. Shag is what they say in the UK.
Yeah.
So remember Austin
I'm sorry.
Powers? You want to shag, baby? Sex.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, he paid me $5,000.
Can we guess who it was?
You can guess, but I'm not going to say. One of the things, well, you have to understand, especially in my business, I have, even now, I have in my store very high profile people in this city, and some from Hollywood, and some from other walks of life. And if I was to start mentioning names, that would ruin my business, both as a dom and my shop. You can't, because as much as I'm open about it, I'm not everyone else, and everyone else is not me. And there's people who would be absolutely pissed at me if I mention their names. So sorry, can't do that. Some of my really close friends know who they are, but I don't give it out in the general public. Sorry.
I'm guessing.
But they are very well known. You've seen many of their movies. So, yes. More are professional people, doctors, lawyers, the people that come into my shop. I have run everything from rock stars to professional football players to some older players, some current players, politicians from this town, policemen from this town.
Clergy at your worst?
Well, I won't. I'll use the word clergy, but none that are Catholic yet.
Okay.
I have had some reverends and things like that. Yes, and I think it's healthy. I mean, you have to remember, not all these people are buying my services as a pro dom. Some people are just coming into my shop to shop for their own personal use. So it's, I don't want to be thinking everyone's running to me as a dom. Yeah.
I missed the part where you said that you owned a shop. What kind of shop?
It's called the Black Room. At the end of the session, if anybody is interested, I can give you a card. I'm a selfless promotion. I'm not above.
We specialize in all sorts of different, all sorts of sex toy stuff, but also clothes.
Well, we're not. Yeah, okay. Let me. We're not really a sex shop. We don't sell vibrators. We don't sell Benoit balls. We sell equipment. We're a fetish boutique. That's how we're licensed. So we do sell, if you want to wear leather, if you like PVC, if you are into handcuffs, whiffs, vloggers, all that stuff. We have it, but we don't sell magazines. We don't sell videos. We don't sell, as I said, we don't sell sex toys because we're not licensed for it. Yes. PVC is kind of like plastic leather, if you want to get
like a shiny, like almost like pleather, like like shiny.
But it's stiffer. So it's the stuff. All right, who saw Michelle Pfeiffer in Batman when she was Catwoman? She was wearing a PVC outfit. Okay, that custom made. I have more people come and say, I want the outfit Michelle Pfeiffer wore, and I tell, well, you better give her a call and see if it's in her closet, because you don't buy something like that off the rack. That was a custom made piece, and we do custom made work, but yeah.
How do you become a pro dom or
well, there's loads of ways. I mean, you could do it here. Usually, it starts out by getting in contact with groups and going. There's one here in town. They're called Munches. They're weekly get-togethers of people who are in the lifestyle. They meet at the PTs on Sahara and Decatur. Okay, they're pretty much they're just dressed how you're dressed now. It's not like everyone's in there wearing leather, and beating each other and that. But you talk about things, and if you're new, you know most people that go in there introduce themselves just talk about their interest in that. And what's great about the group is the people are, there's always trollers, don't misunderstand me, but most people are very open and very welcoming, and they kind of look out for new people in that. And then from that you might talk to somebody you click with and maybe you want to learn more or anything like that. There's also a great website, it's an international one, it's called FetLife. And it's free. You don't have to put up any kind of photos if you don't wish to or anything. But what's also great about it is there's lots of things you can type in for groups, chat rooms, things like that. So let's say you have a interest in scat, okay? Which is, I'm sure people know scat is when you poop on people, okay? There's groups for this, okay? Yeah, I know it's kind of a shitty subject, but people are interested in it. And you can ask questions. Again, you don't have to give a name, you don't have to give a face, you don't have nothing. You can just, so it's a good way. And but then if you type in, say, Las Vegas, you can find all types of groups that are in Las Vegas, and most of these are online groups. But again, they do get together occasionally in flesh, and you can learn a lot from that. That's why you read.
It's a lot like Facebook for kinky people.
Yeah,
it really is. And with the pro dom stuff, often people will want to be like an apprentice to someone who's done it already.
Yeah.
So you can learn the tricks of the trade, especially in terms of protecting yourself. Because I've had friends who they go and they advertise and stuff, but you also have to go through a screening process to make sure that you aren't about ready to get busted by the cops and that kind of stuff. And also, I know in town through the Munches and through there's actual mentor groups.
Yes.
So if you want to learn how to be a submissive, you can go to these workshops and be taught by people who've been submissives for 20 years, and then also learn the psychological stuff behind it. Because a lot of this is physical, you think, but the physical stuff is really the cherry on top of the mind fuck that is BDSM, because it's up here. Yeah. And it's interesting that we find that a lot of people who are into BDSM are actually better educated, have higher IQs, are more emotionally stable, which almost seems contradictory, but it's an outlet. And for some people, having someone flog the crap out of them is like therapy. You can release a lot of emotion and a lot of that pent up anxiety or whatever through something like that versus going to your therapist and crying to them for 2 hours.
And a lot of what people's interests are in this lifestyle is as varied as there are people. Okay. I have experienced some things even where I went, it's quite but you know what? So if somebody has something interesting or different that I don't have much knowledge in, I'll learn about it really quick because I'm a fast learner, and I will, I can usually give them what they want.
You said that you transitioned in your late 20s, right? Or
yes, I lived female from the time I was 21.
So how, leading up to those years where you transitioned and stuff, what was it like going through puberty and your teenage years and stuff?
Difficult. I became aware that I was, again, I can never say I knew I wanted to be a girl when I was 5 years of age, but I was aware that something was different. Just the things that I was kind of told or saw others, boys that they had an interest in. I didn't, and I really couldn't figure out why. So I wouldn't say I was naturally drawn to girly things, but I was very much a child who spent a lot of time alone. I read a lot, daydreamed a ton. I had all little fantasy worlds in my head and stuff. Now I have fantasy worlds in my life. But it was difficult because then a lot of times, you have to remember, I grew up in a generation where there was no internet, there was no, this stuff was not even known about. I had mentioned yesterday that in 1952, some people may have recognized this name, but there was a woman named Christine Jorgensen. She was an American GI, served in World War II, and in 1952 she went to Denmark and had the surgery. Granted, the surgeries aren't as good then as they are now, but she transitioned, and she was billed as the first sex change in the world. Wasn't true, but as far as American purposes went, it was. And I had heard about her, and when I heard about her, what she was, I just instinctively knew, even before the puberty, that this is what I was. And but in a child's mind, you think, well, maybe I'll grow up one day, and maybe it changes when you get older, and maybe one day I'll start to grow breasts like other girls, or I'll look like a girl or something as I get older. Obviously, when you start to hit puberty and you become more aware of how the world works, you realize that you're not going to get what other girls have. And at that time it was difficult because in those years surgeries were possible, but they were extremely expensive, and I was just a poor yup from West Cork, and you didn't have that kind of money, so you think, I'm never going to do this. But the pressures got so strong as my puberty increased and as I got older, that it got to a point where I did some outward things that made me feel better, but it brought a lot of unwanted attention on me. I used to get the shit kicked out of me when I was in school. Now I was 16 years of age in 1975, right? And at that time, my hair was down to my waist. I plucked my eyebrows, and I wore earrings. Small ones, but I had them. That didn't happen in 1975, especially in Ireland. So how many times I got sent home from school? The headmasters would send me home for cause of disruption. And just sitting there, being bullied at school, beaten up, thrown in lockers, thrown in bathroom stalls, just kicked, punched. People would walk by the hallway and just smack me. It happened all the time. That's one of the reasons I went to London, because Ireland wasn't a very accommodating place for someone like me. Yes.
Was your family supportive?
Not at first. When I was a teenager, my family just thought I was gay, and I did too for a while, thinking that's what it was, because I kind of knew what gay was because I was attracted to boys, but I was also attracted to girls. So that kind of fucked my head up because I couldn't figure out that one. But I think that when I went to London, I think it was kind of like out of sight, out of mind. It was a relief for my family. And then when I finally told them I was transitioning, I transitioned at 21, but I didn't have surgery until I was 44. Not because I didn't want to, it took me that long to actually save up the money, because at that time insurance did not pay for it. But when my family found out, I didn't have contact with my family for, almost 8 years. So I still have a older brother who won't talk to me. It is what it is, As much as I say I have the right to be who I am, he has the right to feel how he does. I will say that I have been around him at times in the past couple of years. My mother just passed away in November, so I went home for the funeral, and obviously he was there, and he was cordial, he was polite, but no warmth at all. That part of our relationship is dead. So, but then I have other brothers and sisters who have accepted me since I got back into the family with open arms, and you know, they're wonderful. You know, they support me fully. So you just never know. That's the other thing about when you come out in this lifestyle. You just never know who's going to accept it and who's not. I lost a lot of very good and close friends that I thought were going to be in my corner, and they weren't. And then people I thought would give me tons of resistance, and they've been fine with it. So you never know. That's, you know, but that's life, I guess. You never really know what people are going to think. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. First you and then you. Go. Okay.
Back to the program.
Yeah.
So as a program, do you go over what you're going to do? So
Oh yeah. Whenever I meet a client or a potential client, I sit down with them in a social setting, coffee or something, dinner, and I find out about him as a person or her as a person, because I do session women as well, and find out what makes them tick. You have to be something of a psychologist here. You know, you really do. You have to really know how to read people, and you find out what their kinks are or their desires are. There have been many times I won't take somebody on as a client, and there's been times people decided they didn't want me as their dom. It does happen. But I also do background checks on them. It's nice to have friends on the police force. So I'm very careful about what I do. I've never been arrested, other than when I was a submissive, and the incidences I told you about. As a dom, I've never had an incident with anything that got out of hand or anything. But I check them out as much as I possibly can. You know, to make sure they are who they say they are, that they're not undercover, that they're not. I always try to find out. My friends at the detective department in Metro, they'll just basically let me know, yeah, this guy is from Chicago, and no, he doesn't have any kind of criminal history, he doesn't have any kind of mental history. That's it. I mean, I don't get into really specifics, but I want to know that the person's relatively safe.
But also, like, you have to set what's going to happen. Because
Yes.
it's not like she shows up with every single toy she has and just ties them up and does what she
No.
wants.
Well, I was going
Like-
to say, after you do that, you negotiate a scene. And you say, okay, these are your interests, but what are your limits? You know, like some men are very anal-phobic, all right? And you can do just about anything else you want to them, but you can't touch their arse. They just will totally freak out. You know, it comes from, you know, they're homophobe, and sometimes you open Pandora's boxes, you know, where you're in a session, and if you do not really remember where the no-go areas are, you can cause things to trigger in their heads. Like, let's say somebody was molested as a child, you know, say a boy was molested, you know, he's anally raped a lot. So he doesn't want to have anything to do with that, but if you do something, even if it's something as simple as a finger, that could kick in his head those memories of when he was a child getting raped. And that's when sessions can really go bad. So you have to really know what you can do and what you can't do. Now you can do your little variations of that to give him the fantasy and to bring out as much as what he's after. But you don't want to do triggers. And that's why you do negotiate. And if you're a dom worth your weight, you have to adhere to those. And you can never, ever play when you're upset or you're angry, because you'll hurt somebody.
Or
you have to be
intoxicated.
or drunk. Don't ever play with somebody who's been drinking. You can drink after if you wish, but don't ever play with somebody who's obviously inebriated before the play, because you're just asking for trouble. Yeah.
How old were you when you were fully transitioned?
I was 21 when I began. You mean how old was I when I had my surgery?
When it was complete.
Oh, okay. I had my surgery as 44. That was 12 years ago. I'm 56.
Were you in England at the time?
No, I actually did I had just come to Vegas. I came in June of 2002, and I had my final surgery in July of 2003, excuse me. And I had that in Thailand. So.
Here?
Sorry?
She had surgery in Thailand.
Thailand, yeah. I had saved up, and this will give you an idea, I paid $10,000 for my surgery. Well, no, that's cheap. That really is.
Yeah.
But nowadays, but you have to, there's also almost 13 years ago, or 12 years ago, excuse me. But you have to remember, from 1980, when I was 21, until I came here, I had only been able to set aside $2,500 for my surgery. The rest was living expenses. I didn't live high in the hog, but so it was just doing, just living. So, but when I came to Vegas, I really started to apply my trade, and in a year I made up the rest of the money that I needed to pay for my surgery.
You said you were.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
You said you were like in kind of the punk scene in England.
Yeah.
Did you feel really like accepted in that scene?
I was, yeah. No, I mean, even though at the time I still had a penis, I was just treated as a girl, which is what I wanted. And, people knew. They didn't care. I mean, most of them were fucked up on drugs anyway, so, they were all doing their own stuff. But I never, again, and I passed very well, which was good. And I think the other thing that's very important is, and many people have told me this, is that I seem to put others at ease because I'm such at ease with myself. But I've done it for 30-some years. I mean, I'm kind of used to it. And I'm just being me. And I think that's a lot of stuff. When trans people, when they start to transition, many are very, very sensitive. And they kind of wear their trans on their sleeve. Where for me, I just tried to be who I was. And I was more of a relief to do it. Hello, are we sleeping back there? And I just
fisting. He'll wake up.
Okay. And I just, when I had that relief of just being who I was very much at ease with myself, like I am now. And I just did, and I think that people sense that. So the other thing people have always told me is they said, I don't see any man in you, which makes me feel really good. But and I think that comes through. Because if you're comfortable with yourself, people are going to sense it. If you're uncomfortable with yourself, people are going to sense it, and that's what they pounce on.
When did you start taking hormones?
I actually started taking hormones when I was 32. Okay. So through my whole 20s, I just basically, if you want to use the term cross-dressed, even though I lived 24/7, I just basically cross-dressed for 24/7.
This might be too personal, but your boobs, are they fake or did they come from hormones?
My boobs?
Yeah.
You tell me.
They're real.
This is the best class ever.
They are real. Yeah, I've been very fortunate in the sense, I should tell you a little bit about me. I'm sorry. The only surgery I ever had was the plumbing. My face is my face. Obviously, I pluck my eyebrows and stuff like everyone else does. But my cheekbones are my cheekbones. My nose is my nose. I've never gone through cosmetic surgery of any kind. I've never. I take that back. I had very little bit of hair on my here. I had that electrology, and so if that's considered surgery, then I've had two. But besides, I had a very, very, very light beard. I mean, 4 sessions and I was done, and it never grew back. But when I was starting my therapy for this, and this was in England, they did a chromosome test. Why the fuck they did that, I don't know, but I think they were looking for validation or something. As you know, men are XX, women are XY. Women are XX, men are XY. Mine is XXY, my chromosome makeup. I don't know, what it is. Now, is that the reason why? Possibly, but I'm not saying it is. That's all I know is that's what it is. But yeah, I like I said, I've been very fortunate. My hair is my own. My build is my own. I'm not a tall person. I was never, when I was a boy, and so for that sense of it, I was very fortunate. Transition for me was actually quite easy from the physical part of it. The emotional part, that's a lot tougher. Especially when people do know about you, especially when you're in your 20s, you're so vulnerable to everything and that. Nowadays, because of what I do and who I am, and as Dr. Amanda mentioned, I was an entertainer. So, and when I entertain, I don't mean I wasn't a call girl. I was a entertainer. I sing, I dance, I do comedy, things like that. I've worked in many of the clubs here in town. Some are no longer exist. I also did many clubs in Seattle, San Francisco, LA, San Diego, things like that, both as a trans performer and in clubs where people who would have freaked out that they'd known I was trans didn't know. Is anyone here from the San Francisco area? Anything? Do you know the St. Francis Hotel in downtown?
It's beautiful. It's big.
Okay. On there's what they call the Starlight Room at the very top. It actually opens up to the stars and that. And I've performed there, and that's very high end. So I mostly did comedy, but I did. It's okay, honey. It's just a tip. You're just kind of like. But it's not the first one you felt, to be honest.
And the crazy thing though is in our culture, like legally, for us to walk around topless would be illegal, but someone who is, because you're a woman now, I wonder how the laws are.
I am legally, medically and legally
a woman. But if she had a penis still, she could legally walk around topless and nobody could say anything to her. So talk about double standard, right? So it's like, just because you have a penis, we can see your nipples, but if you have a vagina, we can't see your nipples. But that's stuff that you guys, that's the double standard.
Yes.
I know that, like, I watched that Bruce thing, and he had to get his Adam's apple shaved.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The Bruce Jenner?
Yeah.
And how he had to get his Adam's apple shaved?
Shaved, yeah.
Did you
No,
do that?
nothing. As I said, no cosmetic surgery at all, other than my plumbing. That's it. You know.
Can we talk about your plumbing? Here,
Do you want to hear about it?
You guys want to hear about the surgery?
Okay. Do you want to hear what a surgery is like?
Jasmine's question, and then we'll do surgery.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, so you
And then I will get you.
You weren't like super nervous about getting like such a major surgery, going to like a less.
Of course I was.
country?
Yeah, of course I was scared. It's a there is a very high mortality rate for, or I should say fatality rate for this kind of surgery. It's an extremely. I was on the operating table for 12 and a half hours.
So why didn't you get in like the U.S.? Was it like too expensive?
Oh no, that has nothing to do with it. The reason I did it were two. The first one, and obviously it was not money, though surgeries in the Americas are a lot more expensive than they are in Asia. I was mentioning to the class yesterday, there's a doctor in Beverly Hills who, at the current rate, does them for $60,000. And again, very few people can get it through insurance. Some cities do offer it. San Francisco is one of them. If you're a city employee, they will pay for your SRS. So
sexual reassignment surgery.
Yeah, sexual reassignment surgery. But I went, because the doctor I went to, at the time I went, which was in 2003, he had done 3,000 surgeries without a single fatality. That made me feel really confident that this guy knew what he was doing. And so and then obviously he only charged $10,000. So that's a added bonus. But it was the fact that he had never had a fatality was my deciding factor. Plus, I always wanted to see Thailand, so
It's a beautiful country.
Yeah, it's a beautiful country. So, and if you ever get to Phuket, that's a great town. But I'm sorry. So you wanted to ask something?
What do you think about Bruce Jenner being a Republican?
To be honest, I mean, I'm very liberal in my social values. A bit more conservative in my financial ones because I am a business person. But I'm not really political because what I found is most people who are very politically minded are usually hypocrites anyway. And I mean both sides. I'm not attacking Republicans. I'm not attacking Democrats. I'm not attacking anyone. But I usually, I have many people who are both in the Republican and Democratic Party who visit my shop. And I would have no doubt that if any kind of a bill pertaining to my shop ever came up for a vote, they would probably vote against it. But yet, they're in there. And so, I think politics is important, but I think, we all wear so many masks that usually what comes out of a person's mouth politically is not always exactly what they think. It's the social issues where you find more of the real heart of what a person feels like.
Pertaining to politics, were you in England during Margaret Thatcher's?
Yes, I hated her, but not for that reason.
Oh, okay.
No, I hated Margaret Thatcher. I will tell you, there's two people until little Georgie Bush Jr. came along. There was two people I absolutely despised.
Her and Reagan.
Ronald Reagan was the Antichrist, in my opinion, and but not for the reasons you think, not for trans reasons. You have to understand, I came from a country that was in the middle of upheaval. Northern Ireland was in a time what they called the Troubles. It was during that time that there were hunger strikers, and all they were asking for was they were in prison, and they were asking to be granted political status. Other than that, they had no demands. They were IRA, Irish Republican Army, for those of you who may not know Irish history. All right, well, Margaret Thatcher refused to grant them political status, and they went on hunger strike, and 10 died. And for those of you of colour in this room, what we went through as Catholics in Northern Ireland was no different than what blacks in South Africa went through with apartheid. It was the exact same thing. So to me, Margaret Thatcher, and now I didn't live in the north of Ireland, but I was affected by it every day. I had friends, I had family up there. And my family who were Catholics, I had people that died as a result of the Troubles. I had a cousin who was just walking down the street and was shot in the head by a Protestant paramilitary group just because he was Catholic, no other reason. And so this part of it, I blame that kind of situations, I blame on politicians. And to me, she was adding fuel to the fire. So I literally would say I would never go visit Margaret Thatcher's grave, but if I could, I would take a big dump right on the headstone. I disliked her that much. And Ronald Reagan was right in bed with her, so I have no great love of Ronald Reagan either.
Okay,
hopefully that doesn't offend, but
we have 10 minutes. I want to hear about your surgery. So tell
all
us
right.
about
Well,
surgery.
now, as some people may know or may not know, there are two types of surgery. There are those two got from a man into a woman. That's a vaginoplasty. And then there's one where you go from a woman to a man, and that's called an addictomy. Right? Let it sink in. Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, it was a joke. An addictomy. Hello.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyways, contrary to some people's beliefs, they don't cut your penis off. Okay. When you are born, man or woman, you have a natural hole in your body. It's called perineum. It's a hole in the bone. Okay, your pelvic bone. For a man, it is where the veins come through into the penis, and for women, it's where the fallopian tubes come down through into the vagina. If you are born male, you have penile skin. If you are born female, you have labia. It's the same skin. Okay. So what they do is they remove the testicles, and then they take the penis and they make an incision up the entire length of the penis, and they take out all the stuffing, the way you would say take it out of a sausage or something. It's the same thing. And they leave they leave the skin itself, and then what is done is that skin is inwardly put into the perineum and sewn shut. So if you had, say, an 8-inch penis, you're only going to have an 8-inch depth to your vagina. Okay. So for me, that old adage of bigger is better is not always true, because for me, mine is obviously an artificial opening. It's not a natural one like you have. And having a natural opening allows the muscles to contract and expand and much more than mine. Okay? So I have to dilate. Even to this day, after 13 years, I have to dilate at least now an hour a day to keep it, because the body has a natural tendency to close up on natural opening. So if I did nothing, my vagina would literally just close shut after a period of time, and I would have to pay to get it opened up again. So I get a dilator. A dilator is about this long. It's usually made out of marble or plastic or whatever, okay, and I insert that, and that keeps me open unless I'm having a lot of sexual activity, where if I'm having intercourse, I don't need to, because the penis is doing the job of the dilator. When I first had my surgery, I had to dilate 12 hours a day to keep the opening for 6 months. to do that. Then it got reduced to 6 hours a day. Then it got reduced to 4 hours a day for the first 2 years. And now I just do it daily. Now, to be honest, I don't do it every single day, but usually I try very hard to. I do skip a day here if I'm busy or something, but usually now what I do is, if I have to do that, I just lay in bed and I put inside. I watch a movie on the telly, or I put some music on or something. Sometimes just fall asleep, and that's it. But it's such a comfortable piece now. I'm so used to it. It's really not an obstruction.
Yes. Is there a different sensation from when you had sex with a penis and now?
Very good answer. You know what? No, it is different, but yet it amazes me how much it still feels the same, because the nerve ending is the nerve ending. What I mean by that is if I get aroused and I'm touched and aroused, the sensation on the tip of my clitoris feels like it did on the tip of my penis. That part is okay. As far as orgasm, and yes, I can orgasm.
That's not
okay. That's usually the next question. As far as an orgasm goes, the female ones are more intense. Where with men, as I'm sure all you gentlemen know who have had sexual relations, even if it is only with your right or left hand, there's that long, hard surge at the beginning, and then it kind of, slow, dribble. Okay. With women, or as a female, it is much more boom, which is really nice, and I recover faster than I did as a man. Men, they usually say when you're young, it usually takes about half hour, or as you get older, maybe even longer. But I seem to recover faster and I'm ready for a second.
Do you have a clitoris?
Yes, I do.
How do they make that?
Very good question. What they do is nowadays I did what they call penile inversion. So remember I mentioned the nerve ending that goes through the penis, through the tip. Okay, they severed the nerve ending, but from the brain down to that nerve ending, it's still active, or it's live, okay? And what they do is they just basically they sew a piece of skin on it, and it's, it's right there, you can see it. And then that one I'm not going to show you, don't worry. But it's there, yeah. Now, well, that's going to cost you a few dollars. Yes, Jim?
At what point, in your relationships and your friendships and stuff, do you let people?
Very good answer. No, like many of us, we all have our secrets. Okay, and it depends on the relationship. I have gone out with many men who never knew, and it was only one date. I didn't fancy going out with them again, so I never told them, and they never knew. There obviously are those who do know that don't have a problem with it. There are those who knew, and I wasn't so much a person, but I was their fantasy. Okay, and I don't like that. I don't want to be somebody's fantasy. I want to be a person. Date me because you like me, not because of what I am. Okay, but to answer your question, when do I tell them if they don't know? It depends on a few factors. Do I see the relationship going farther than a date or two? Or if I want it to go farther than a date or two? And the second is if I do plan on sleeping with them, or they give an indication they want to sleep with me. Then I think I owe them that. Some people would say no, that some people say that ruins relationships, and it has. I mean, I've told fellas that as soon as they heard it, they were like, I'm out, goodbye, it was fun. But, but it's also happened where it didn't, and usually in this town, the reasons that I've had relationships that didn't work out, that, went longer than a date or two, was not because of me being trans, was because of me being a dominatrix, because they get very jealous, or it had to do with, them having a problem with, in this town, with gambling or drugs or, stuff like that. That's usually, because I'm very anti-drug. I mean, I don't preach it to anybody, but I've had too many people I know die from overdoses that I'm against it. And it's not good to be that way in my business. I'm sorry, yeah, Chris.
I was just wondering, what was the question the last class asked they didn't answer?
Nope.
Well, nobody's asked it yet.
You don't get it.
So like when you owned a dungeon, did you have like other DOMs that worked for you in the
No.
dungeon? It was
No.
just you?
No, I take that back. I had people who worked for me that worked the club, but you have to remember, people did not come to pay a person to session.
Right.
Okay. If they did it on their own, away from the club, I didn't know it and I didn't care. But it was known that if you are a pro dom and you are working as a pro dom, you could not work in my club.
Oh.
during club hours.
Okay.
Okay.
Her
Because I
dungeon-
could get.
Her dungeon was a public play space, so like the green door, like going to a place to have sex in. So for example, you want to spank the hell out of your partner, but you can't do it at your house because your roommate's gonna hear. So you would pay to go to a place where you could do this kind of behavior and it was accepted. You were not going there to find someone to pay to do it to you. And
Yeah,
there are
that's
places
illegal.
like that, but that was not.
Yeah, that's illegal.
Okay.
Now, what I did real quick, what I did is, if anyone watches the old CSI from Vegas, and if anyone was ever familiar with the character Lady Heather, that's what I did. I was just a host, so I just oversaw, and that's it. Okay.
Okay. So thank you, Tara.
Thank you. I love the questions. They're really good.
And
so I hope I didn't embarrass you.
Yeah. If you have any extra questions, you can come ask real quick, but I know class is over. Make sure you do your sex ed letters, get them in to me tonight, and we'll see you next week for review.